Here we go.
Well, hello there, you amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. This is video 2 of 2. And this is it's Wednesday still. It's the midweek hump, baby. It's the midweek hump, and we all love a midweek hump. Did you catch video 1 earlier? I drew up the comparisons between Lucy Letby, who seems to be the UK version of Bryan Kohberger. She is she is currently inside, having been convicted of multiple heinous crimes, serial killer, whole life sentences. If we'd have had the death penalty, she would have been served up like a kipper. But specialists have now come up and said that this seems to be a massive miscarriage of justice. And in fact, it could have been about protecting the organisation and throwing Lucy Letby to the wolves. Just saying. But look, we're back in Idaho for this video. We did part 1, was it yesterday or the day before? Which looks at Bryan Kohberger and whether he was in Moscow, Idaho at all around the time of the crime. And I'll tell you what, I'm sick to the back teeth of speaking to divs around this case. People who claim to be following it. They want to comment on videos, but they're clearly not paying attention. They're not listening whatsoever. Still not listening. Now, I turn around and say Bryan Kohberger is not around this property at the time this crime took place. Okay? That's what I'm saying. But then you'll get some div who will come and comment and they're saying, oh, you're lying. You are bending the truth because Bryan Kohberger was in the area 12 times. 12 times. And here's the problem, right? Because this was, and we're going to get into something in a minute, me and my man Eddie. You know, when me and Eddie come together, it's like, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And you're going to see some beauty in a second. As we're going to absolutely show what we mean when we say Bryan Kohberger wasn't in the area at the time of the crime, and pretty much law enforcement have confirmed it, knew about it, but bent the PCA in order to get an arrest. And it fucking worked. This is why Bill Thompson wanted the PCA pushed out as is, because of how effective that was going to be to people who are thick as shit and can't help but turn around and say things like, oh, but he was in the area 12 times, he was stalking him. Despite the fact that Ann Taylor herself brought up the fact that, yeah, he was coming to this area. They knew he was coming to this area, and they knew fucking what he was doing. Like getting gas, for instance, or going to the shop, for instance. They knew where his car was, when it was, how it was, whether it was travelling, whether it wasn't. And it wasn't near this house. Because he knew where it was. But anyway, strap yourselves in, because this is going to be a little bit of a ride, but I need you to pay attention. Pay close attention, because this is going to explain some things. And if you've really paid attention, maybe you've picked up on it yourself. Maybe you're not one of the divs. So look, the PCA, forensic investigators, prosecution, and the state places Kohberger away from the residence, therefore knowing it was impossible he committed the murders. And I know what you think. You're going to think to yourself, wow, surely that ain't right. Surely that's not a thing. How can they charge him with these murders? How can they charge him when they know he ain't there? That makes no sense, surely. I stated, this is Ed, right? Because we've been talking for a long time. And he stated 20 months ago, probable cause didn't exist, which was relied upon by the phone was either in an area without coverage, in aeroplane mode, or turned off. Remember, because people are turning around talking about phone pings in the area. There weren't phone pings in the area. It'd give you a fucking head a wobble if you think that. And they can't even confirm that his phone was off. They are just... They're being clever with how they word things. They're saying it wasn't reporting to the network, so we think that he turned his phone off. But this gets worse, right? Because it says, PCA, Payne's PCA, page 13, the 8458 phone travels south through Pullman. At 2:47 a.m., the 8458 phone stops reporting to the network. Are you with me so far? So they're saying stops reporting to the network. The 8458 phone does not report to the network again until 4:48 a.m. on a cellular tower near Blaine, Idaho. Okay, you with me so far? This is straight out of the investigator's mouth, right? At 5:30 a.m., the 8458 phone is located in cell tower coverage in Pullman. Law enforcement obtained search warrants to determine cellular devices in the area between 3 and 5 a.m. A query by forensic investigators didn't locate the 8458 phone in close proximity to King Road House. Ready? The PCA stated the 8458 phone was off the network between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m. Payne's PCA, page 12. As part of this investigation, law enforcement obtained search warrants to determine cellular devices in the area of the King Road residence between 3 and 5 a.m. A query of the 8458 phone did not show the 8458 phone in close proximity to the King Road residence between 3 and 5 a.m. on November 13th, 2022. Payne's PCA has the 8458 phone not reporting to the network between 2:47 and 4:48 a.m. But law enforcement and forensic investigators in the PCA performed a query of the 8458 phone and determined its location and time not near the house. The phone was off for the arrest, but the phone was on between 3 and 5, which was known by law enforcement and forensic investigators before the arrest. So they knew. They've got his phone. They know where he is, that he's away from the property. So it seems that when it suits them, the phone's off and it's not transmitting. Do you know what I mean? The phone didn't ping by the house. There are no phone pings. There's nothing that places him at the property. And it's speculation and conjecture which places him there. When they can turn around and say that he was in an area or the vicinity of a tower that services the property. Anyway, let's simplify this, right? Further disclosure by the state and prosecution not only found the defendant his phone and car not near the house, but he was 99.9998% in a cell tower that did not service the area. And Eddie goes on to say, the murder charges won't stick, nor will the incomplete investigation, now knowing the defendant phone and car's location provided zero evidence to implicate the defendant as responsible. The law enforcement charged the defendant with 4 counts and 2 other counts, but wasn't in the area. 3 unknown male DNA samples known before the arrest, who were present but concealed, and when known, a protection order was granted, further concealing the identities, who were at and in the house. Ultimately, when did the tip over? The premature end into the investigation of Kohberger. And this is the point. The point is so many people were duped by this weaponized PCA. The PCA that was drawn up off of falsities, absolute falsities, to make the public believe in a certain story. But the elements that actually puts Bryan Kohberger there at the property, they don't exist. But because the PCA was written in the way it was, this wildfire grew and people believed what was in it. You now believe that Bryan Kohberger was stalking them. We have literally had the prosecution come out themselves and turn around and say there was no stalking. We've had it stated in the court hearings that there was no communication via social media. We've literally got a situation where there are no phone pings in the area. Yes, Bryan Kohberger came to the area multiple times before this happened. He lived down the fucking road from them. But all of these times that he came, and Ann Taylor alludes to this, is they know what he's doing. They know that he's getting gas. They know that he's at this place. They know that he's at that place. And they, most importantly of all, they know he's not at 1122 King Road. So why omit that? Why omit that he went there but he was doing other stuff? Well, you could have left that out there altogether. because it had no relevance to the crime. But they left it in there because it fed into a specific narrative, and that was stalking. So you believe that Bryan Kohberger was stalking the victims when he absolutely wasn't. The phone situation. There's people, like I said, these divs who believe the phone pinged in the area, but there is no phones. They place him away from the property and turn around and say that his phone must have been switched off. There's nothing that places him there. There are no phone pings that place him there. The only thing that places Bryan Kohberger at this crime is this knife sheath. That in order to believe this knife sheath is Bryan Kohberger's knife sheath, that he went into this property, he left it there and left his DNA on it, you have to believe that a criminology student who was specialising in fucking DNA, of all things, specialising in it, goes into this property and leaves this golden goose for them. A golden goose that just happens to be so fucking golden that they're willing to overlook the fact that there's unidentified male DNA samples in the house that are blood. And not only that, but not only in the house on the fucking hand railing, but in a glove outside. But forget all that. Forget all that, just the knife sheath is what's important. The knife sheath, that all of the other work around it, we're going to hide that. We're not going to tell you about it. And I ask this question, right? So if they've got Bryan Kohberger's DNA on this sheath, and don't even get me started on the fact that they've stated that by the time this sample, which should be degrading as time goes on, because you test it, it degrades. You test it, it degrades. You lessen it every time you test it. But miraculously, this one fucking grows. Not only grows, it doubles in size by the time it gets to the FBI. Come on, man. Surely you can't be that stupid to understand there's something going on here that ain't right. But if they've got his DNA and they put that on this public database, right? Put it on the public database and they get a hit. They get a hit, right? Why do they even need the father's DNA? Why do they need it? And I know there's going to be people who are making up an excuse, but they didn't need it. If they had his DNA and they uploaded it, whether it was fucking illegally, whatever, but they get a match and they've got his relatives on there, what do they need the father's DNA for? What do they need it for? They've got a match. Get him arrested. Get it done. But they didn't. For some fucking unbeknownst reason, they have his DNA, they go to this public database, enter it on there, then they do this thing with his dad's DNA and pair all that. It just doesn't make sense. And then, whatever they've done, they then don't have any record of doing it. They seemingly don't want that to be seen. They're going to just shield it from everybody. Come on. Come on. Let me know down below what you think, and I'll catch you all tomorrow.